Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. This week marks 40 years since Howie Mandel made his TV debut on St. Elsewhere in 1982, kicking off a career from creating Bobby's World to hosting Deal or No Deal to judging America's Got Talent. I spoke to Mandel in 2017 when he called in to promote the Howie Mandel All-Star Comedy Gala on the CW.
Mr. Mandel, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. So first, just sort of tell me how the show came together, because you taped it in Montreal, right?
That's correct. And for those that don't know, the Montreal Comedy Festival, just for last festival, is probably the mecca for all things comedy. And that's where some of the biggest people in the business started, got seen, showcased, or show up, or even now appear every year in the summer in Montreal. So the CW was nice enough to say, hey, let's televise some of this and let's get some of the biggest names in comedy on tape. So they taped this special. It's a 2-hour special with some of the biggest names, Jay Farrow, Tom Papa, J.B. Smoove, Eliza Schlesinger, and they asked me to host it, and I get a chance to host it. And, my true love, even though I do many other things, is stand-up. So I get to do stand-up and host the show, and it all airs Monday on the CW.
Awesome. When did you tape it?
This past summer.
Okay, cool. But this will be the first time, audiences are able to see it on TV. Awesome. You mentioned some of the names, Jay Farrow and J.B. Smoove and Russell Peters. Take a second and explain, what makes each of these comedians so hilarious.
They each have a different style, and they, I don't know that I could speak to what makes each of them hilarious, but they're all really funny. They're all accomplished, and you'll see accomplished comics, and you'll see up-and-coming names that you've never seen before that I promise you will be, household names very shortly and get their own shows on television. But the beauty of stand-up specials like this is, there is something for everyone, and there are many different styles of comedians, many different comics. So the beauty is that, you just stay tuned and you hang in for a couple of minutes and you'll see something totally different. I think that's the same thing as another show I do when I do America's Got Talent. I always tell people it's variety, and it's not like anything else on television. And the variety of comedy that you'll see on this CW special is impeccable, and it's the best of the best.
How long of a special is it on TV? Is it like a couple hours?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Okay, awesome. So not only is it just showcasing these awesome, stand-ups, I believe I read that it's also marking the 35th anniversary of the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal. So you guys aren't you guys doing some tributes to some of the past comedians that have done that, like Amy Schumer and Wanda Sykes?
Yeah, there are tributes to some of the people that have been there in past years, and you'll see people like Amy Schumer and those people. This is actually the 34th year. Next year's 35th year.
Gotcha.
But, we did it last year, too. It aired and did very well, and that's why CW had it back. But we always, that's just part of the course for this. So, everybody who's anybody in comedy is always inspired by fellow comedians, and so you see some of the comics backstage talk about the great sets that they've seen there and the great routines they've seen there and reminisce about some of the greats, and you'll see clips of some of the greats and other people who have been on in the past.
Did you ever play the Just for Laughs Festival prior to these tape specials, back in the day? Did you ever have a set there?
Yeah, many, and I continually do it, but these are the first time, this is the second year that the CW has recorded these. But yes, I've hosted galas, I've appeared there, and everybody and anybody who's anybody continues to go there, and it's not like they just started out there. They're always the who's who of comedy. I recommend to anybody, and it's usually during July, a week in July, it's a great trip to go up to Montreal, and they close down the city, and every venue has a top-notch comic playing. You can see everybody from Louis C.K. to Jerry Seinfeld at any time, and they're still going there and doing it. So it's not something where you go when you're just starting out and then you don't go back. It's always got the who's who of comedy there.
Absolutely. Well, you're a comedy titan of yourself. A lot of our listeners probably remember you started saying Elsewhere too, but I remember watching you in Bobby's World growing up. I think I saw you, God, where was it? I think at the Weinberg Center in Frederick, Maryland a couple years ago. And I remember you telling a story that you came up with Bobby's voice by accident. Weren't you choking on a piece of cake or something?
That's exactly right. I was choking on a piece of cake and I couldn't breathe, and that's the sound that was coming out. And I realized that even though I was dying, a lot of people were laughing at the sound. And like an idiot, I went home and I practiced. Not choking. I do it without cake, just with the muscles in my throat. And lo and behold, it became the voice that I got known for.
Are you still amazed by, this whole younger generation that still comes up and talks about that little animated show from the 90s?
The truth is that we're in talks right now to relaunch it. So I'm hoping that there'll be kids and people from this millennium who know it and love it, and hopefully you'll see it soon on a television near you.
That's great. Well, I thought even some of that, like, gee, Bobby, don't you know? I think you predated Fargo with some of that stuff. You were ahead of the curve. Awesome. And we gotta, you mentioned America's Got Talent, but before we go, we gotta also throw in there, Deal or No Deal. How did that change your life?
That was a huge pinnacle in my career. I was about to leave show business the week before I got that show, and I had no idea that it would be that successful, that big, and that much change in what it was that I was doing. But and that gave me the opportunity to continue. I don't think if I wasn't doing Deal or No Deal, I'd be talking to you today about the All-Star Comedy Special on the CW. I mean, it relaunched my career and gave me all these other opportunities.
You mentioned that you were about to leave show business. Why was that?
I was just done for a while. That's 2005. I've been doing it, since the mid-'70s. It was already like 30 years I had been doing it, and, I didn't see anything new and fresh and interesting, and so I went and I was about to leave when I got the opportunity to do that.
And whether it's Deal or No Deal or America's Got Talent or now this comedy special, just bringing it full circle, what's sort of the key for you just being in front of those cameras, whether it's taped or live? Do you have any advice if other up-and-comers are watching you wanting to get into something similar?
I think Nike has the best advice. Just do it. That's my advice to anybody. Just do it. I don't know that I have any real words of wisdom beyond that, but that's what I did. I did it on a dare. I did it, and lo and behold, and now it's almost 40 years later, and I'm still doing it.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're still doing it, and we encourage everyone to check out the Howie Mandel All-Star Comedy Gala on Monday night on the CW. Howie Mandel, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.
Explain your DNA on 10 cases, man.
You're inside the police interrogation room with the alleged Potomac River rapist.
I'm not guilty on any of this stuff.
So calm, so reasonable. Could this be the man who terrorized women for 9 years before murdering a brilliant scientist 2 decades ago? Experience one of the most fascinating true crime podcasts available. Join crime reporter Paul Wagner for Unknown Subject, Season 3 of WTOP's American Nightmare series. Search American Nightmare Podcast on all podcast platforms.
I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.